Hi, I'm JT.
I'm Patty.
I'm Quinn. And this is my gosh darn...
No, it's our fucking podcast, Quinn! Today, we are talking about gun control. It's a very big issue in the United States. It's a very important issue to me. But I'm curious to know your opinion, Quinn. What's your opinion on gun control? Do you like it? Do you hate it?
I like it a lot. So much.
You're wrong.
I'm not.
Yes, you are. Patty, what do you think?
I like it. I like it. It's a good thing.
It's fucking disgusting.
I like it, I love it, I want some more of it. Like more than the 0 we have.
You want negative guns?
Yes.
All right.
Negative guns.
Either way.
Okay.
Honestly, I am very, 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 very pro-gun. I don't like any form of gun legislation. I am like the NRA's like poster child, if you could think about it. But I want to hear why you think guns should be banned, because maybe I can dissuade you.
I didn't say they should be banned.
You said you like a lot of gun control. You wanted more than 0.
Yeah, more than 0 doesn't mean 100.
That is a point.
Like
Quinn does have a point.
No, more than 0 guns. That's what I thought, but yeah.
No, that's not what I meant.
Okay, then explain.
No, I mean, like, we need to make sure that gun legislation is just tighter about how we sell guns. It's not like, oh, I want you to go into everyone's house and take a gun away from them. That's crazy. Like you can't do that to people, but you can try to take as many preventative measures as possible to ensure that as little gun violence as possible happens.
Wait, so you're saying there's a correlation between gun violence and gun ownership?
I didn't say ownership, because I know the statistic. I know that there is no direct causal relationship.
Yeah.
We're not a straw man for your argument, JT.
I'm not... Okay, I was kind of trying to set up a straw man. But the point is that you're saying that it's going to reduce violence, but what do you have to show that it actually does?
Well, other developed nations that have gun control laws.
Like what?
Like Germany and France and Italy and Finland. And those are all the ones that I have tabs open for on my computer.
Okay, let's look at Germany for a second. They've had a huge spike in rapes in the city of Cologne.
Does that mean less guns?
No, I'm just saying it makes harder, like women not being able to own a firearm makes it very hard for them to defend themselves against gang rapists, which has been like a big thing happening at least in Cologne.
You take this, I'm not a lady person.
Okay. First off, just because someone could have a gun to help defend them, if they don't know how to use it, that could easily be used against them. Mm-hmm. So, unless you're saying that everyone knows how to use a gun, then that just wouldn't.
The thing is, in Germany, they don't even have the option to... Well, they might, but it's very, 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 very restricted option to own a firearm and then learn how to use it, right? So they're not even given the option to really own a gun in the first place. So you're kind of telling people they can't really defend themselves properly.
Well, all they have to do is pass a psych eval if they're under the age of 25. Like that's in Germany, that's what it takes to buy a gun.
They also do a very actually I heard there's a training exercise some German police officers are put through where they actually have to go buy a handgun illegally to show how easy it is to buy a handgun illegally in Germany. Like, don't take that for granted. Like, source that somewhere. I heard that from somewhere. But yeah. So, that is the one thing I will say that's not sourced.
On Quinn's side,
yeah.
I can see it on his screen. It is, you have to be 25 and pass a psych eval.
Why should you have to be 25? What if you're a 17-year-old woman? What if you're a 20-year-old woman? What if you're a 24-year-old woman? Does that mean you can't defend yourself now because you're not 25? That's ridiculous.
Why are you assuming that the only way you can defend yourself is with a gun?
Because if there's multiple people, it helps to have something. It's known as the Great Equalizer. Do you think like a 120-pound... A 120-pound woman is going to, like, even if you're Ronda Rousey, you're not going to be able to take on, like, 7 people at once. And if you look at if you look at the Cologne gang rapes, they have videos of like women being snatched and like taken in, and it's massive crowds. Massive crowds. How are you going to defend yourself if you don't have a gun in that situation? And how are you going to tell a person, like let's say a mother, for instance, who has children and can't retreat if there's a violent felon trying to cause harm? She can't retreat fast enough and save herself because she's got to protect her kids, right? In her own mind, she wants to protect her kids. Why are you going to deny her the right to own a firearm?
Well,
but she's not being denied the right to own a firearm.
In the world of women trying to not be raped, we have developed other ways to protect ourselves, like
the female body just shuts itself down.
Spikes that look like cats. We have pepper spray. We have
tasers
one-on-one. That are pink and cute, and that's what.
That works one-on-one, and in the same instance, all you have to do to combat the scratching technique is to just grab their wrist.
Okay, but what is one handgun gonna do against a crowd of people? They could take the Ben Carson approach. Everyone attack at the same time. And then what are they gonna do? Like,
I fucking hate Ben Carson.
Like, you can't carry around an assault rifle on your back all the time.
First of all,
I know you want people to.
Who wants to make the first charge when someone has a firearm? Who's gonna, like, if you're gonna attack someone, you want to attack. Ben Carson's fucking crazy. I hate Ben Carson. I hate Ben Carson.
Oh wow.
Okay.
I'm sorry, guys. That might have been a bit loud. But the point is, right, is that when you're let's say a rapist, like, or
hypothetically.
Okay, actually,
whenever I'm a rapist.
Hypothetically, if you were to be a rapist.
Let's not even do that. Hypothetically, if you were a criminal trying to cause harm, whether it is robbery, whether it is a violent act like rape, murder, something like that, you want to do it on someone who is not armed, because that gives you a better chance of succeeding and coming out alive or unharmed, right? So why should we give them that opportunity? It makes no sense.
Well, there's also a little factical that I have open somewhere on here, but and you should really just, like I read, I don't know where it is, but over, like, in the vast majority of cases of somebody owning their own firearm and having some sort of a home invasion or a personal attack on them, they don't use it. They don't have the chance to use it. If you just have a gun in your house and someone walks, and there's some sort of person that gets into your home and tries to attack you, like, how are you able to just grab the gun and use it all of a sudden? Like, that's... who just has a loaded gun with the safety off, ready to fire on anyone that might attack them? Well,
you're not going to have the safety off because that's irresponsible firearms handling. Every gun owner will tell you that. And also another thing that's usually very well done is they don't have the bullet in the chamber if they're going to keep it out in the open, which is also, like, that's debatable whether you want to do that. Like, if you don't have kids, then yeah, you could keep it on, like, your nightstand, for instance. But, like, if you do have kids, you really don't want to do that. But, again, like...
So what are they going to do with the gun?
They can grab that. The thing is, you want the option. You don't want to tell someone they can't. You don't want to be like... Because what's the point? You're like, oh, just because they don't use it doesn't mean they shouldn't have it. That makes no sense. Just because I don't wear a certain piece of clothing doesn't mean I can't buy it if I wanted to. It makes no sense.
Of course, but also,
I don't play baseball, but I can still own a baseball bat. Like, come on.
Yeah, but also, to be fair, we are... Like, I've gotten away from my own argument, which is that, like, we're not even talking about not letting anyone have guns. That's not the point of gun control. The point is not letting people who shouldn't have guns.
Because your point is also not just, oh, we want to make sure that certain people don't get guns. Your point is we want to make sure that only people that get guns can get these certain types of guns and that everything else is restricted and things like that. And that's totally logical. Like, in the New York SAFE Act, right? The New York SAFE Act says any magazine that holds 8 bullets is high capacity. So you're telling me a 1911 handgun, which is a very common handgun in the United States, that holds 7 bullets is fine, but 8 bullets is suddenly now a bigger threat? Like, no. Let people make their choice here. You shouldn't be restricting someone's right to defend themselves, right? And even in this city, like, if you want to walk around armed, having the scratch thing, that could probably get you arrested here. You can't have brass knuckles, you can't have plastic knuckles, you can't have pepper spray. There's so many restrictions in New York City on weapons or anything that could be interpreted as a weapon that you're basically left like vulnerable to any criminal. And again, I hate to repeat this one thing because a lot of people say this all the time, but criminals don't follow laws.
Okay, but if it's harder for people to get guns, like legally, then it'll probably be even harder to get them illegally.
That explains why Chicago has so many shootings.
That doesn't mean
Chicago.
anything.
Yes, it does. Chicago has some of the strictest gun control laws in the nation, and they have a lot of shootings. They don't have mass shootings, but they have a lot of gang shootings. They have a lot of murders. They have a lot of homicides. You look at a lot of other cities that do have high gun control, and you get pretty much large murder rates. Let's take Houston and Chicago and compare them. The only difference between them is really demographics, and that's in race. And I'm not going to really count race as something that affects the crime because, like it's not like one race is inherently more criminal than the other. Like, no. But what's the difference between these two cities with crime rates? Right, Houston has a lower crime rate than Chicago, and Houston has a lot more gun ownership, has a lot more gun stores, has a lot more right to carry, whereas in Chicago you don't, and they have a lot of shootings.
My question is, what do you have against someone getting a psych evaluation?
Because in this, first of all, in this instance, the book where you get, I forgot the name of this book. There's a huge psychological book that basically you can check to see and help diagnose a patient if you're a psychologist. It's huge textbook and everything. Now, you can pretty much find out something wrong with every single person in that textbook.
Okay, but something wrong with somebody, of course, everyone has something wrong with them, of course. That doesn't mean that, some people might not have something wrong. That means they shouldn't have a gun.
If you checked my record, right? My record, if you looked way back, you might, I don't know if it's on there or not, but because of what happened when I grew up in elementary school, it might put down that I have anger issues of some sort, right? And that might prevent me from getting a firearm.
But you're not getting a firearm in elementary school.
I'm not getting a firearm in elementary school, but the point is, right, is that because of something I did very on in the past that isn't related to what I do now, I don't act that way at all. I may still be restricted from a firearm. And the thing is, and it sounds
But taking the actions of a child is different than a mature adult who's going to buy a firearm.
So what age do you measure that?
You perform an evaluation in order
what
to
age
buy
do you measure that?
No, there's a system
What
set.
age?
No, stop. There's a system set up in which, in order to buy a firearm, you have to get a psychological evaluation. It's not a matter of, when I'm 16, somebody evaluates me psychologically, and then if I'm good, I'm able to buy a gun for the rest of my life. People's mental states deteriorate. People's mental states get better. You just said when you were a kid, you might have been told you had anger issues, and that might stop you from being able to buy a gun. Now you don't.
So you're saying each new purchase should require a psych eval?
Yes.
So what if I purchase, in that instance, I could purchase a firearm, have the first psych eval pass, I purchase a firearm, and then I go crazy but don't get a second gun. You're not going to find that out.
Well, people don't. That's a stigma about mental health in itself because people don't go crazy. You, one day you don't just wake up and you're like, I have schizophrenia. That's not how it works.
Yeah, but there's gradual processes that could affect that. It could be a great number of factors that play into that. My point is, though, is if you're not consistently buying guns, there's no way for the government in that instance to have checked to see if you're now considered responsible or irresponsible before something's too late. Because your way of measuring this is you take a psych eval each time you get that. You don't want just one psych eval and then you're good for life. Because as you said, you could go nuts, or you could be nuts and have passed that valuation.
Well, you said that. You said that if I passed it once and then I go crazy, It's
a hypothetical.
Yes, but people don't go You don't just develop a mental disorder.
You're telling me you don't have experiences that could directly trait to that? Like, for instance, a big stigma about veterans, for example, is that, they have PTS or PTSD. It's PTS, by the way, because if you don't come back a little screwed up by that way after a war, then it's definitely not. Then you're disordered. But honestly, it should be called PTS, because like everyone gets some form of that.
JT for the Veterans Affairs Committee.
Yeah. Sanders misran that entirely. Sorry about your boy, but Sanders misran that.
It's not the top.
I know.
I was making a little funny joke, boy.
Either way, mental conditions such as PTS or other mental conditions that happen due to traumatic experiences could develop later on after you've bought a firearm, and that's still not going to be foolproof. People should be allowed to buy a firearm. Some people manage their disorders very effectively, and you're going to tell me that they should be restricted?
No, because if it's well managed, then
a psychologist will be able to tell if you have a mental disorder and you manage it well. Just because you have a mental disorder doesn't necessarily mean that you're off the walls and you can't function in society. Mm-hmm. There are some people, and a lot of people, who may have a mental disorder or it runs in their family and they could get it later in life, but if they have it at that moment, they learn coping mechanisms so that they're able to still function.
Well, how about this? Let's move away from the mental health argument and more into, what do you think are there certain guns that should be banned? Like, because I don't think any of them should be, but like
any of them. What function does having an assault rifle in your house have?
Well, a lot of people actually do use that for hunting, but the Second Amendment isn't about hunting.
Okay, it took like 3 years to reload a gun when the Second Amendment.
I know. Exactly. It's not about. But the point is, it's not about.
They didn't think we would have AK-47s when they wrote that.
But that wasn't the point of it. It wasn't like, they only have these things, it's going to be safe. That wasn't the point. The point was they wanted citizens to have the same weapons that the government did so they could protect themselves, right? The Constitution was written so that we could have a government that was large enough to take care of people, but not too large that it would start becoming tyrannical, something we fought against. So the Second Amendment is there because when the people create a revolution, when the people fight back, the people almost always win. But what sucks is that when they're not armed, it takes forever, it takes ridiculously long. And the thing is, we don't want government taking advantage of us because we're not armed. So that's what it was in there for. Assault weapons, you could use that to protect yourself. What if you're on the border and there's a lot of cartel crossings? What if you're in a neighborhood where there's a lot of gang violence? What if you're in...
So you just bust out your assault rifle and
I walk around with an AK-47?
You're telling me I can't choose how to defend my home, even though you don't live in the same neighborhood or environment and do not experience the same threats that I may or may not have.
I'm saying having a machine gun.
It's not a machine gun.
Having an assault rifle. Mm-hmm. Fine, and these are any gun, so let's even just say a machine gun. Having any sort of high capacity, high firing rate, very deadly weapon in your house, you don't need to do that. That's so wild.
Except the criminals that are causing problems also have those weapons. So you're telling me I can't be as equally armed to defend themselves? I have to be at a disadvantage all the time now?
Okay, but why are you just going out with...
No, because it's a logical point. Why should I be disarmed for my own safety when it hurts my safety? I'm putting myself at a disadvantage. It's like saying, Patty, because for your own safety, I'm going to take away all those things that you could use to scratch your rapist with, because you honestly don't need that. Do you see the logic behind there? It's a completely similar comparison.
Not really.
Yes, it is. I can kill someone with I can kill someone with any weapon, right? Anyone can kill someone with any weapon. I could kill you with a stapler.
I prefer that you didn't.
I'm not gonna, because you're a good person and I like you, and Thanks. I also don't like I believe in the non-aggression principle.
I don't like killing people.
I don't like killing people out of offense, but
Gee, I'd hope so.
Yeah. But the point is that someone can be killed with a stapler in the same way that someone can be killed with a weapon. with another kind of weapon. Like, so there's no point in saying that, it's
a stapler, it has to be a little more direct. With a stapler, you kind of have to go straight for the jugular.
I could beat you to death with a stapler if you were down with that. Like, beat someone to death with a stapler.
If I'm down with that? What the fuck?
God, my rhetoric today is off. Holy shit.
Okay, aside from the minutia of stapler killings,
beside your fucking...
I don't see the actual function of having a high capacity
It's to
firearm
defend yourself.
But
against
so
what?
so does a smaller gun. Yeah, Patty.
Also,
you want to talk?
Okay, so basically, in your hypotheticals, you're putting yourself in situations where you're like, if I'm against a gang, or if I'm against this, and you're assuming that they have assault rifles.
They could have assault rifles, they could have a handgun. Either way, I want to either outmatch them or be even.
But you're saying they could, which is saying that everything should be legal because of the possibility that they might have it.
Everything should be legal because you have no right to tell me how to defend myself. Right? You're saying that your complaint is about high-capacity magazines, high-capacity firearms, things like that. Well, first of all, how do you define what's high capacity? Because in New York, high capacity is 8 or more. In another state, it's 10. In another state, it's 20. Right? There are so many weird different... In New Zealand, right, it's 10.
My favorite state.
Well, New Zealand is a nation state, if you think about it. I'm talking about, in other places, right? In New Zealand, it's 10. In New York State, it's 8. In other states of the country, it's 30 or unlimited whatsoever. Either way, you don't know what threat I may be facing. So you have no right to tell me what number I should have. What if I'm also a recreational shooter who just likes firing guns at the range? What if I'm Keanu Reeves?
Yeah, but
Keanu Reeves has a handgun.
And did I not show you the video where he was at the range and just being awesome?
And he was at the range. Let's say there's some sort of safety protocol where you don't just have a massive gun hanging out in your car while you're driving to the gun range. There's a... Actually, no, I'm not going to go
Police
there.
officers have firearms in their car all the time. A lot of them are considered, by your definition, high capacity.
The only thing where I feel the disconnect is that why do you, or just people who think that they should be able to carry around machine guns, AK-47s, why should you be able to carry around these high capacity guns that are used in war?
So I'm going to bring up a couple things to answer that question. It's actually a very valid question. This is an age-old argument. In the 1500s, the Tokugawas in Japan banned anyone from owning a sword because they didn't want any threat to them. But the claim that they made was that, we want to make sure everything's peaceful. So they got rid of swords, which are by no definition high capacity. And at the time, they were considered weapons of war. If you think about it, they still technically are, but they would be a little outdated. Now, my point here is that, yes, they may have been designed for that, but they're not necessarily used for that in a civilian setting. No average person's going around doing that. And of course, the thing here is we're not talking about average people. We're talking about keeping guns away from people who are fucking insane or from criminals and such like that. But the effect of banning weapons like that is it makes it so that the only two groups of people that have that are police, who not everyone trusts, and they have killed people too, Tania Rice, I believe the name is, or who's the guy that was killed in the stairwell?
Kai
Green. Yeah, Kai Green.
Gurley?
Yeah, okay. I think it's Kai Green. I think whatever. You get the point, is that there's a big distrust that they're killing a lot of people too. So you're saying that the only people who should have that are cops who have put in situations where they kill innocent people, or they should be given to criminals, or criminals are the only ones who are going to have access because they don't follow the law.
Patty.
What we're saying, because at least for the both of us, we're both saying that
Oh, it is girly. Okay.
that psych evals and background checks are a good thing. So while your point was, oh, criminals will have it because they don't follow the law, or police because they're the police and they'll have guns and they're able to kill people too. But what we're also saying is that, if you pass the psych eval, if you pass the background check, then you'll have good citizens, the average citizen, having a gun.
Now, are you done? Or are you still going on?
Well, what I'm saying is that you're saying, there were these two options. That there are these two options. What you were saying was that there are these two options, that it's either the police that are going to have guns or the criminals that are going to have guns. But what we're saying is that, with the psych eval, with the background checks in place, people who pass those could be able to buy a firearm to protect themselves.
Well, guess what? The San Bernardino shooters passed those tests. California has all. They passed both of those things. And they still were able to rampage through because no one in the area immediately had a firearm, and they had to wait till cops to come to go and get rid of the threat. So those San Bernardino shooters passed all those evals, even though...
What does California have?
They have, some of the strictest gun control laws in the country. Oh, my gosh.
Okay, let's take, Dylan Roof, the Charleston shooter, into account. He wouldn't have passed it. Just because, of course, you can't prevent every single occurrence of gun-related tragedy with laws.
But you can...
But you can limit them. Why would you not take preventative measures?
Because you can make sure that people have the ability to defend themselves then. I want it to be more open so that maybe someone in that church also could have been armed. There's a big movement after Dylan Roof killed those people in that church. There's a big movement of pastors who was now, I don't want to, but now we're going to have people in church that may have to carry weapons because we don't want to get killed while we're worshiping.
Okay, church, big crowd. Someone has a gun, starts shooting. People scramble. They're trying to... it's not like you're going to train everyone, hey, if there's an open shooter, just sit down. Don't worry about it. Someone will cover you.
Oh, my God.
Then what do you do?
You are also doing... if you look at those situations, too, people that own guns tend to know how to use them. And the thing is, when you buy a gun, everyone tells you, especially in the gun community, about some of the rules of gun safety. And one of them is you never point them at things that you don't want to destroy. And in addition to that, you also make sure that if you're going to destroy something, there's nothing behind it that you don't want to destroy.
Yeah, exactly. So if they...
People that own firearms in the gun community learn that immediately.
And those are responsible people. And those are responsible people who know how to handle guns. So what about the people that don't know how to handle guns, or the people that we don't really want to have?
Well, I'm saying this. First of all, in this situation, we're dealing with the possibility of people that aren't necessarily crazy. They're not crazy. They're dealing with someone who may be crazy in that environment. But the threat analysis that you're giving me here is that you don't want a cross shooting that gets innocent bystanders killed. Well, the first thing I'm going to have to say to that before I go on my point is, would you rather it just be a fucking massacre where everyone gets killed? The second thing, right, because then it's only a one-way shooting. And then when the police come, the police go, and it's a two-way shooting then. But there's already been a lot of people killed. I'd rather someone be able to deal with it there. The second thing I'm going to go with is, we're talking about people who go buy a firearm. Everyone that goes to buy a firearm usually gets talked to by the person, especially if they're a new shooter. They go on the range, they learn those. Because not many people just buy a gun and leave. They buy a gun, they go to a firing range. Or they go to the range that's in the store. The store usually has a range. And they go and they test that out. The same way you may, if you go to buy a violin or something, you may want to play the violin. I'm comparing it to a consumer product. But say I go in there and I buy violin or guitar. You get to try the guitar once, see if you like it. The same way you get to try a gun and see if you like it. They make sure that you're following the rules of gun safety. If you're not, they inform you of that because it's in their self-interest at the time to make sure that you're not waving a gun around in the area. Now, because you get that necessary, you could call it training in that immediate environment, the chances that you're going to get up, go over in a situation where there's a mass shooting or a mass shooter or active shooter, that you're going to shoot someone and knowingly know that there's someone behind and pass and kill them too, it's not gonna happen.
Yeah, exactly. So if they have the gun and there's this big group of people and one active shooter, and they don't want to hurt anybody. That was my point, is they're not going to want to just shoot at the person. So how does having the person who just has the gun actually help?
Because
if they're not going to shoot,
go on.
which they shouldn't do because they're not going to shoot into a crowd of people. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying they shouldn't be able to have some, like of course some form of defense is ideal, but in a situation like that where you're just in this massive clump of people, most of whom presumably are not aggressors, how are you supposed to actually do anything like without catching someone? Which, like, again, you said good gun owners aren't just going to shoot into a crowd. Of course they're not.
Civilians that carry firearms, whether it be concealed carry, open carry, right? They are able to deal with the threat a lot sooner than the police, because the police, at best, let's say 5 minutes, 1 minute, 5 minutes, something like that. It's going to take them a while to get there, and by that time the shooter has already done a lot of damage. But your point that, they're not going to shoot, they will shoot, but they're going to wait for there to be an opening to do so. So, yes, maybe the shooter might possibly kill one person or two people, but instead of killing 30, he gets shot before that happens. So the people on the ground have an easier time dealing with that. That's like saying, if there's a hostage situation, that SWAT shouldn't go in and deal with it because they might kill someone accidentally. Yes, that's a risk, but they are trained to deal with that. In the same instance, these people are trained, don't shoot at someone when there's a chance that you're going to kill someone you don't want to hit or hit someone you don't want to hit.
Fair.
But the thing is that the average citizen who would go and buy a firearm, to my knowledge, I don't think they get as extensive of a training than SWAT members.
No, they don't. Not at all.
So how do you know that they're? So then, how do you know that they're going to handle the situation the same way that a SWAT member would? The point I was making
was that both are trained. You do not point your weapon at something you're not intending to kill, and you also got to make sure that there's nothing behind, and that's something like pretty much most gun owners or people that practice recreationally get taught at a range. My first time shooting, you had a whole safety brief beforehand about that, and then when you're on there was an instructor who's like, this is your first time, all right, this is what you're going to do. Watching and making sure that you are responsible here, and you learn that responsibility in that instance. So it transitions over. Yes, a civilian, an average civilian is not going to be as well trained as a Miami-Dade SWAT officer, but there still is responsibility here, and they're not you gotta let people have the choice to defend themselves. I mean, your point here is that restricting these firearms in this way is going to reduce killings, which is by also reduces crimes, reduces murders. But evidence shows otherwise. You look at Australia, and Australia is a big thing a lot of people like to bring up, especially if they're anti-gun, and it's like, Australia banned all these assault weapons, Australia banned certain firearms from being owned, and their crime rates are down. What no one checks is that their crime rates were already going down beforehand, and look at their neighbor New Zealand, which is socioeconomically similar, and didn't pass restrictive gun laws like Australia, and the crime rates were pretty much the same and dropped pretty much the same.
Okay, but Australia also hasn't had a mass shooting since 1996.
Australia also has a different mental health system. Australia also has different population sizes, a whole host of things. I mean, you look at Switzerland too. Switzerland has a high gun ownership rate, and they haven't had a mass shooting for a long time. So it's not that guns are the thing that's causing the mass shooting. So, especially if you look at a lot of studies that show that.
People with guns are.
Look at China. In China, they ban guns and they're still shooting. China. Oh, they're gonna remix me now. All right. If you haven't seen it, go watch Donald Trump China dubstep remix. That shit is amazing. All right, back onto the serious thing.
It's not a sponsor for us, by the way.
It's not.
Imagine. That would be great.
That'd be amazing. But then we'd have our name associated with Trump.
Oh, that would suck.
Yeah.
Go to OFPproductions.com/Trump for a 30-day free trial.
All right. Either way, look at China, for instance. They've had mass stabbings. They've had shootings. They've had a lot of other issues that come about. It's not that owning guns is going to make you a criminal. It's that criminals are going to use whatever they can to commit the acts that they want. And you need to have citizens, law-abiding citizens. You need to give them the ability to defend themselves in those situations. Yes, do we want a cop or a trained police officer handling that? Yes, but it's going to take time for them to get there. Sometimes it's going to take, they're not going to get there in time. I would rather be able to defend myself immediately than subject myself to harm, subject my family to harm, subject my friends to harm. So in those that's like saying that you shouldn't learn self-defense, for instance, because you could severely hurt someone. And you look at
no, it's not.
Yes, it is.
No. Somebody else can't get a hold of your self-defense skills. Someone else can get a hold of your gun.
And you're telling me someone's going to run up to me, unarmed. They're unarmed. They're going to run up to me, go into my pants, grab the gun out of the holster, rack the slide, go, ha ha.
Okay.
No.
This is under...
Not going to happen.
One,
no.
It could. I'm not saying...
No, and no. I swear... No. I don't even want to argue that, but I have to.
How do you feel about it?
About what?
What she just said. Is it no?
I get the point that you cannot physically take a skill from somebody else. But then again, it's very hard to take... It is nearly impossible to take a firearm from someone, especially if they're already wielding it. It's in their hands.
Yeah, but not even just like, oh, I'm going to disarm you. Like, it's possible for somebody in their own home. Like, kids have gotten guns from their own parents of rooms. Like, of course, ideally, that's not able to happen. But
kids also get drugs from the medicine cabinet.
Of course, but you don't want that to happen either. It's not like I'm an advocate.
There are child-proof bottles. That's why there are child-proof bottles. So that the children can't get into the medicine.
Kids still have played with knives before. Kids play with fire. Like, a lot of other things. Those
are all bad things.
Kitchen knives? Okay, I'm gonna ban kitchen knives because I don't want
playing with a kitchen knife is a bad thing. A kid being able to
and a child playing with a gun, right? A loaded firearm is a bad thing too. And in both instances, a child playing with a kitchen knife and a child playing with a loaded gun is both situations in which the parents are being negligent, right? So we're saying that because parents can be there's a percentage chance that parents can be negligent, we're gonna ban kitchen knives from all homes, or we're gonna you have to take a psych test to own a kitchen knife now.
No.
In the UK, they want to do that. In the UK, they want to do that. They have a big campaign about confiscating knives now. Because there's a huge spike in stab. Yeah, you shake your head. That's not true. It is. They've been doing that.
The point I was attempting to make was not about just small children, although it's also not ideal that they get a hold of guns. Like, there are like young adults who get a hold of guns that are held in their homes. They bring it to their schools. Like they bring them places.
You're talking about like the
I'm talking about school
Sandy Hook shooters.
Yeah, I'm talking about school shooters. I'm talking about people who are able to get guns from family members without really any effort. Like, that's not... I'm gonna be honest, I totally lost my train of thought. Welcome to the other side of the cut.
So, glad you could join us. All right. So, what's interesting though is we've all been talking about talking about hypotheticals and things like that, but we haven't really brought up statistics.
Okay.
So, like, one of the things I would question is, you guys, of course, want to get rid of, you want to at least restrict gun ownership in some sort of way, right? Do you believe that there's a relationship? I mean, I asked this earlier in the podcast, and do you believe that there's a relationship between gun ownership and crime?
I know that But I understand. I will give you this completely, that there is no direct causal relationship that is observed of gun ownership to gun crimes. That is true. That's just, like, that's a thing.
Gary Kleck.
But when I look at statistics, when I was researching this, I also observed that in countries with higher gun control rates, there were less gun homicides. Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
So Switzerland, let's take Switzerland for example. Switzerland has about 4.5 million guns within its country, right? And it only has 7.9 million people living in there. So that's a very high gun ownership rate. There's a saying there, a gun in every closet. Now, they only in the year 2009, they only had 29 murders nationally. That's a percentage of 0.3%, 0.3 killings per 100,000 people. That is ridiculously low. That's lower than Ireland. And Ireland has like ridiculous. Ireland, because Ireland has really, really, really strict gun control laws because of the IRA.
Okay.
And even then, like, it didn't spike. Like, they had like 0.6 before, and then it spiked up to I think 1.6.
Is there a screening process of any sort in Switzerland?
They've banned like assault rifles and things, of course, and I believe there's a screening process. Didn't look that up, but usually when there's a ban on assault rifle, yeah, look that up, Patty, with your fast MacBook.
Switzerland, you said?
Ireland.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, I was asking about Switzerland.
Well, with Switzerland, one of the main reasons why, and this might help your case here, I don't know, one of the main reasons why, hey, I'll concede a point if it's valid. One of the main reasons why they have such a high gun ownership rate is that for a long time it's been mandated that after you serve in the military, and there's a draft there in Switzerland, as you know, you have to keep your service weapon.
Sorry, I'm reading.
No, totally fine.
Continue.
But you have to, in Switzerland, like, you have to keep your service weapon. And a huge percentage of the country goes and gets military training because they're trying to deal with external threats. The big thing about Switzerland is that they're neutral. And to be neutral, they need to make sure that they won't be invaded. But that point may help your case, may not, because in my opinion, I'm like, well, they have a lot of gun ownership besides from people who aren't in the military and such like that. Like, there isn't like re-screenings all this time.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay, so this is interesting. So there's general requirements, and then there's eligibility. Which would you like me to start with first?
Go with eligibility. I want to hear
eligibility.
For 500.
Eligibility for 500. Eligibility. Personal protection does not qualify as a good reason.
And what comes up is that it's the crime rate there, the homicide rate there spiked from 0.6 per 100,000 to 1.6 per 100,000, a full point. But also, right, there's a criminologist named Gary Kleck. And Gary Kleck researched 41 different studies that were looking at the correlation between gun ownership and gun violence. Now, you originally said that there is none, you'll give me that point, but the point I'm trying to make here is that when they adjusted for what's called reverse causality, and that is instead of gun ownership leading to high crime, it would be high crime leading to gun ownership. So like in Ferguson, for example, leading up to the riots and other things like that, a lot of people started buying guns. So it'd be very false to say that the guns caused the riots, when it'd be rather than to say the riots caused the ownership of guns. Now, when 41 of these studies, right, were checked for reverse causality and things like valid measures of prevalence, only 4 studies addressed reverse causality, and of them, they either dispelled the myth that gun ownership leads to higher crime rates or reversed and showed that gun ownership leads to lower crime rates.
To momentarily bring it back, because I did see this, is that in Switzerland, and for the application in order to buy a weapon, it says valid official identification, residence, and criminal record copy not older than 3 months. So they do have a slight background check.
Yeah, they do have a slight check, but it's ridiculously lax even compared to our country. And the thing is, here we want even more gun restrictions and firearms restrictions on who can own a firearm. Whereas we look at Switzerland, it's like, look how relaxed that is. It's like, don't have prior record as a criminal.
Which is what we're saying.
Yeah, but you want like psych, criminal, can't own this kind of gun, can't own this kind of gun. They can own firearms. A lot of they have a national holiday where they go to a firing range with ammo provided by the government, and they're firing rifles.
And that sounds pretty fun.
Yeah,
but you said they all go to the draft. Like they're
not all.
They're all. But there is a draft in place.
The males
go to yeah. There is a draft in place in Switzerland. Like you said, there are that shows there's a high proportion of people who know how to use guns that we just don't have here at least to the level that they do. When people are going through army training as a mandatory thing of just being a citizen, of course there is going to be more familiarity with gun safety, and it's more likely for people to
well, here's the thing, right? You guys are very big into big into government, right?
Yeah.
You guys like government intervention in a lot of things. So do you think do you think that schools should teach basic gun safety?
Well, if schools don't teach sex ed, then what?
I'm saying you guys. I mean, that's a different argument, right? But I still I like schools teaching sex ed. That's a very good thing. But the point is, should schools teach basic gun safety? Brooklyn Tech, the school we went to, there's a part of the school we go to. Yeah. Sorry, a part of the basement that we're not allowed to go into, which is now converted into some storage area. That used to be a firing range. We used to have a rifle team.
So are you saying that the government would say that schools should teach kids how to handle guns?
I'm asking you guys, do you think that should be done even at a high school level? Under supervision of, let's say, safety officers or highly experienced teachers or instructors or police officers. Do you think it should be, because it's a controlled environment, they're learning firearm safety, which overall, even if you do pass gun control laws, still help. Because even if someone finds a gun, they're not going to mismanage it and accidentally kill someone. So do you think that there should be more gun education in this country in regards to gun safety?
That is a very interesting point that I don't have developed feelings about. And it'll take me a little bit.
Okay, so while I do think that would be a good idea, that if people had more exposure to it, there would be less of a mystery around it, kind of like the way in Europe, the kind of attitude they have around alcohol, which is that you expose it to the child at a young age with just sips of wine at the dinner table and stuff like that, and so they don't go overboard when they're of legal age like they do in the US, where it's alcohol is evil, alcohol is terrible, and then they binge drink even before the legal age, and then you have all of these ODs and deaths and stuff like that. So I think that might be a good idea. I still don't like guns. I still don't like the idea of them. But I think that would be better than just having the whole... If you expose people to things, it makes them more comfortable. And so they won't go crazy when...
They won't freak out with it, yeah.
They won't... The equivalent of binge drink.
Yeah. Now, the thing there, right, is that, that, of course, totally responsible, but it's all right that you don't like guns or you're not comfortable with them. You don't have to own one. That is totally within your right. I'm not saying you should.
I just realized.
Okay, but the thing is that if someone wants to own one, who are you to tell them they can't? And that's the thing. It's like, I may not like... I don't know, what alcohol don't I like? I may not like pumpkin spice vodka, but if you're into that, like, go ahead. Like, I can't stop you.
Hold on. Yeah, put this setting so you don't look pale.
Oh, that's so
Thank you.
You have like a
that was possible.
reddish, tannish glow. Like
I have an aura.
like a light sunburn.
yeah, sunburn chic. Be in the show.
That is almost entirely useless to us.
Alright, stop. Now just clap at the same time. Ready? 1, 2, 3.